All right, Unity of Fredericksburg, good morning. God bless each and every one of you on this Palm Sunday 2022. Reverend Juan Enrique Toro, delighted to greet you on this special Sunday. Just remembering the wonderful moments we've shared together, and really grateful and delighted to be with you today. We're sharing a Palm Sunday message which I've entitled, Pressure is a Privilege. And I thought many times about that moment in which Jesus made his triumphal entrance into Jerusalem to the adoration and the waving palms of his followers, right? He's greeted as a hero, he's greeted as a savior, Messiah, as a teacher, as a rabbi, as a great light. You know, the Bible tells us he came in on a donkey, very humble, and a lot of joy coming into Jerusalem. But the reason I think about it so much is because I always was wondering what was going on inside of Jesus as he was making that entrance. We have it on biblical authority that he knew very clearly what was to happen during the next week, because we know that within 5 days, 6 days, he's going to go through torture and crucifixion, possibly the worst time of his life, right? And he knew that as he was making this triumphal entrance. So I'm guessing that when he's making that entrance, a lot of joy around him, inside, he's feeling a lot of pressure as well, a lot of stress. You know, how is this going to play out? You know, am I up to the task? Just a very inner stress was probably going on within Jesus. And that's why I thought this message today was going to be an appropriate contemplation for us on this Palm Sunday. So, you know, I'm an avid swimmer. I love swimming. And last year when they had the Summer Olympics, I was a great follower of the swimming competition. And I was fascinated most particularly with one athlete, a swimmer, Caleb Dressel. You might remember him. He was successful in winning 5 gold medals at those Olympics, and just a fantastic feat, a beautiful swimmer. And I was interested in seeing, an interview that he gave after the 5th medal, and sitting down relaxed, and they asked him about the pressure of being an Olympic athlete at those games. And he said very clearly and very honestly, he said, pressure is hell. Right? He said, pressure is hell. He says, when I arrived at the Olympic Village, I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I was off my game, I lost 10 pounds within the first week. I didn't do as well as I would have liked in the early competition. Pressure is hell. And I think he puts it very clearly for us. I think most of us would agree with him. Pressure is hell. And so that's why I thought we'd contemplate this, because even though pressure is hell, we in Unity, we're all about transformation and change. We declare, man, I'm down with that. Transformation, you bet, I'm in there, right? That's what we're all about. We're also a very positive thinking group, right? We like to believe that when life challenges come up, that we have enough resilience, enough God connection, enough inner strength to be able to handle whatever comes up with a certain amount of grace, with a certain amount of consciousness and ease to be able to go through and face the next situation that comes up. We like to feel like we're in the flow. But of course the question comes up, what happens when it doesn't, right? In Unity, we tend to not be so good about talking about our processes of challenge, right? I know that as a field minister, sometimes congregants wouldn't even come to church when they're having challenges, because they felt that they couldn't be honest with people and tell them, I'm really going through a hard time. And they only return after maybe they've gone through something. But in the process, while they're in the pressure cooker, while they're in the mix of the challenge, it was not easy to talk about, right? Maybe they would feel judged or whatever it is. They just were just not good about telling people, you know, I've been knocked down and I get up and I get knocked down and I get up and I get knocked down and I just don't know if I can stand up again. Right? We're just not good about being real with people in that way sometimes because we too tend to be so positive. So this year, 2022, when New Year's came around, we sat down and made our New Year's resolutions, and I decided that this year was going to be the year in which I was going to face my beliefs in financial manifestation. I decided that this was going to be the year when I really became a master of manifesting financial good. Right? I wanted to get the money issue resolved in my life. And actually, my wife Laura joined me on that. We made our plan, right, which included monthly therapy calls, some workshops to explore limiting beliefs. We checked our tithing practices, you know, beefed up this and that. We promised to check each other on words that we might use that express limitation or scarcity thinking. And we set up this whole plan. And among that was my wonderful affirmation: I am a master money manifester. How about that? I am a master money meditator. Manifester. Master money manifester. Man, so we got all excited. And so, you know, we came into March when the Ides of March, about mid-March, I decided to take stock and kind of how we were doing. And I realized I knew things had been tight, you know, for this year. And I started looking at it and noticed that, thank God, I have a full-time job, pays me a regular salary. I praise God for that and very thankful for it as a chaplain in a healthcare center here in New York City. But I also have 3 other ministries that I do. And these 3 other ministries help to supplement my income. They're also perfectly in alignment with my mission, my vision in life, and I love to do them, and they help me financially. By the way, one of those 3 ministries is guest speaking. So I'm very grateful and honored to be able to contribute this message to you, and it's also helping me financially, right? So it's part of my 3 ministry mix, right? And so, but I noticed that in March, the income that I'd received in these first 3 months compared to last year was less than half. And I realized that, yeah, things were tight, but not only that, but, you know, things were very tight. You know, I hadn't realized that just how tight things had been. And of course, you know, we got all the reasons why, right? We got inflation going on. Of course, you've seen the price of gasoline and all of that. But of course, you know, we know life is consciousness. And so had to take a look at it, see what the heck is going on here. And when we did that, we realized that something deeper was going on. Now, for those of you who are versed in metaphysics, right, what would you expect to happen in your life if you boldly step forth and declare, I am a master money manifester? Boom! What would you expect to happen in your life? I can feel those metaphysical wheels turning, and I know that some of you are saying to yourselves, everything unlike itself shows up. Am I right? You bet. Ouspensky and Gurdjieff called this second force, right? It is the implication that the minute you try to change something, move out of your comfort zone, any kind of change will automatically bring up some resistance to that and will demonstrate to you the limitations of your consciousness. The limitations called second force. Now, this is not a secondary force in the universe. This is just the way the universe works. It's called second force because it is the wall that you hit when you begin to implement a change. So, I came to realize this is what's going on. In fact, things got so tight in the house. Share this with you. One weekend, we ran out of toilet paper in the house, all right? And we didn't have enough cash in pocket or in the bank to go pay for toilet paper at the corner store. We had to dig out the Home Depot card, the one they give you credit on. We had to go dig out the Home Depot card to get to Home Depot to buy toilet paper at Home Depot because we didn't have it in any other source. So what I mean to say is that we were feeling pressure, financial pressure. And for me, maybe for you it's different, but for me, financial pressure is probably the hardest pressure that I have to face. Right? Financial pressure for me is truly hell, just as Caleb Dressel had said. So we need to understand what this is all about. Whenever you think about something you want to change in your life, what you are saying is, I want to grow. I want to expand. I want life to be richer, fuller, easier. I want greater ease, greater comfort, right? I want to move something in my life to make my life better. Well, when we do that, we realize that sometimes we're kind of stuck in our comfort zones. We're maybe addicted to the way the things are doing. Maybe we're stuck in a vicious cycle of the way things have been, or just gotten comfortable with it. Just kind of said yes to it and didn't give it much thought. But we realize that we need to break through those things. We need to change those things, right? Now, what we don't realize many times is that there's a consequence to that change, right? Again, what they call second force. Change will always imply resistance. So you need to be aware of the consequences that you're bringing about yourself when you challenge yourself to change something, right? So change equals resistance. And for the purpose of this message today, let's just equate resistance with pressure, okay? So change equals resistance. Resistance equals pressure. Change equals pressure. Boom. There we are. We're pressuring ourselves. Now, I'm ready to drop the first truth bomb for today on you. You ready for this? Fasten your seatbelt. Here we go. Pressure is obligatory if you want to change. Again, pressure is obligatory if you want to change. Bam. Boom. Pressure is the impulse to rise up, to grow, to make better. Now let's take a deep breath here, Unity people. This is a sour pill to swallow. We're not taught this in metaphysics class oftentimes, right? Pressure is obligatory if you want to change. Wow. Now, how we deal with it. If it's obligatory, we all got to go through it. How do we deal with it? There's the key. How we deal with the pressure is the whole game. And that's why I was fascinated as I was contemplating this idea. Billie Jean King, you remember the olden days there, the tennis star, female tennis star, very famous. She said, pressure is a privilege. Whoa, kind of slapped me upside the head. Pressure is a privilege? Always associated pressure with, stress and negativity. She says pressure is a privilege. When I heard that, I said, boy, she knows something that I don't. I needed to investigate that, and that's why I'm here to unpack it with you today. We become overcomers when we learn to deal with pressure. It's part of the training. Obviously, the athletes, Caleb Dressel, he'd been trained. Every time he goes into the pool, he's going to face that pressure. Been trained, but even him is saying pressure is hell, right? But there's training involved. That's what's important, you see. And it's not only true for athletes, it's true for all of us. So when I read this idea, pressure is a privilege, again, I was in the midst of this scarcity experience that I was going through. I realized I'd framed it all wrong in my head. I had it all set up wrong. Something negative, something to avoid, something to get past. Pressure is a privilege. I love the word privilege. You know, privilege implies that we have some kind of advantage. We have some kind of special right, or maybe some kind of an immunity to something, right? An advantage, which means that if we're feeling pressure, there should be a welcoming spirit to it. We're welcoming an advantage, a special right, an immunity of some kind. If we can develop that kind of consciousness, maybe we can help ourselves navigate through this. Now, the prophet Isaiah was talking to his people who are feeling a lot of pressure and they're having a lot of problems. And he says this to them, right? This is Isaiah 30:20. He says, though the Lord may give you the bread of adversity and the water of affliction. Now, this is God, right? The Lord is giving you the bread of adversity and the water of affliction. Yet your teacher will not hide anymore, but your eyes shall see your teacher. Whew. Though the Lord may give you the bread of adversity and the water of affliction, yet your teacher will not hide anymore, but your eyes shall see your teacher. Oof. Now Jesus said it a little simpler. You remember he said, in the world you'll have tribulation. Hey, be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. Basically saying, look, in the world you're going to be pressured. But don't worry. You can overcome it. You're more than that. Right? Powerful words, powerful ideas. So Caleb Dressel went on to, in this interview that I mentioned, to say, yes, pressure is hell. But he said, by the time the finals came in, I was able to control it. Huh? The interview went on to note that when he was coming out of the pool, they would often notice that he was speaking to himself, some self-talk. He was mumbling some words. And they asked him about it. It says, we noticed that you seem to talk to yourself when you come out of the pool. And he says, yeah, I'm reciting a psalm. It wasn't clear which psalm he was citing, but it doesn't matter. What's important is he had a process in place. He's coming out of the pool. He's just faced the pressure. He did what he did, whatever that was. And now he's got a process to move through that pressure so that he can be ready for the next one, right? 5 gold medals. So there's something about our ability to deal with pressure in a welcoming kind of way that seems to be really important for us. In looking into this further, I realized that there seems to be one thing that's really important, and that is that we need to impose the pressure upon ourselves. At least for me, this makes a lot of sense. When pressure comes from the outside, I tend to resist it more. I tend to fight against it more. I tend to, feel like a victim more. But if I decide for it within myself, if I self-impose the pressure, it challenges me. It offers me a goal. It gives me something to work towards. I'm self-motivated through my own internal pressure. Now here's a second truth bomb. It's a quote from Tony Robbins, and he says the following: the secret to an ordinary life, Ooh, boom. Big sentence, right? The secret to an extraordinary life, says Tony Robbins. This is Tony Robbins in one sentence. Is to demand more from yourself than anyone else can expect from you. Bam! The secret to an extraordinary life is to demand more from yourself than anyone else can expect from you. So Tony Robbins is down with this idea. Demand more of yourself, you see. Again, for me, when I feel that outside pressure, I need to put it into context. I need to shape it. I need to put my consciousness around it. Let's suppose at work, right? The boss comes to me and says, you're doing pretty good in these areas, but in these, I need to beef it up a little bit. Right? I'm going to give you some goals, some deadlines, right? And you think that, boy, you think, oh, the boss man's coming down on me again, right? You get a little defensive. You get a little resistant. If you think to yourself, well, is he right? Right? Is she right? Whatever. Do I really need to beef this up? Well, you look at it. You say, well, yeah, maybe I do. So rather than take whatever he or she is putting on you, you put it on yourself. Well, here's what I'm going to do. Here's the way I'm going to handle this. Here's the results that I'm going to receive. Demand from yourself. Maybe you need to think about, boy, is this job really worth it for me? Do I really enjoy this? Is this in alignment with who I am? Do I really want to put myself on the edge here for that? All good questions. Living life consciously. But if you decide that yes, then your own demand upon yourself will really help you make that pressure into a privilege, an advantage, a special right, an immunity. Now, when your own self-demand, when you do that for yourself, you can begin to see this as a blessing. I've shared with you in the past, some of you may remember, I was in Costa Rica. I was turning about 50, kind of having a little bit of a midlife crisis. Ministry was doing well. People were showing up. There was money in the bank. Programs were good. We had the employees we needed. Everything seemed to be working pretty good, except for one thing. The minister was bored. Minister was losing some of the passion, some of the energy, right? In fact, I was so kind of down that I needed to take a retreat. It was on that retreat that I discovered a poem. I think I've shared it with you in the past. David Wyatt. Don't want to share the poem today, but it had to do with coming to the edge. David Wyatt says it's essential that you come to the edge because that's where your passion is. That's where your life is. That's where you overcome the pressure to become better than yourself. So I looked at that and I said, I haven't been on the edge. I've gotten comfortable. It's become too easy. I need a little bit of edge walking that I need to do. So I imposed a few things upon myself, including beefing up my speaking. Began releasing my service notes, and I decided to be more vulnerable, more authentic, more straight out, etc. Things improved. It was not easy, but I put that demand upon myself. So the question is, what's your edge? Where are you? What's your frontier? What are you working on? Well, just look through your life. And if there's nothing that seems to be sort of edge walking for you, maybe you need to think about creating something. A little bit of passion, a little bit of spice, a little bit of life, a little bit of pressure. Because pressure is a privilege, you see. Think about that. And if you do have an edge, and maybe you've hit the wall, trying to face that edge, trying to overcome that edge, and you've been beat down time and time again. See if this idea of reframing it from the inside rather than from the outside can help you. Make your own demands upon yourself that make sense to you, but that authentically bring you to that edge. Now, what does it take? In Germany, they did a study of some violinists. They wanted to better understand why was it that some very young, talented violinists would actually make the Philharmonic, the cut to become a Philharmonic orchestra player, and other violinists would not, and some would not only not be a violinist, but they became violin teachers. So they did a study of students who at the age of 18 all showed great promise, right? They did that study. And, they then saw them in later years, and they put all of these violinists into three categories. The ones that had become teachers, the ones that had become sort of mid-range violin players, and then the third group, which was the Philharmonic, which was the top. Now, this is not a judgment about being a teacher. God bless all the teachers. We need teachers, obviously. Very important. It's a goal. It's a beautiful thing. But their study was trying to see what did it take for somebody to become a Philharmonic player. That was the intention, okay? So, they asked them and they interviewed them. They said, what does it take to be a Philharmonic player? The interesting thing was they all said the same thing. They all said, well, you need to practice. Everybody agreed you need to practice. They all agreed that practice is not fun, that it's boring, and that it's very difficult. They all agreed on that. They also agreed that the more practice, the better. No doubt. They all agreed on the same thing. So what was the differentiating deal? Turns out that for the students who ended up becoming teachers, by the time they were 18, they had practiced the violin about 3,000 hours, which is commensurate with, doing their regular practice, going to classes, and doing their regular training at home. The ones who had become mid-level violin players had practiced up until the age of 18 about 5,000 hours. Okay? The ones who had become Philharmonic players, by the time they were 18, had practiced 7,000 hours. More than twice the teachers. Right? So that meant that after they took their class, after they had practiced what the schools had told them they needed to practice, they went home and practiced more than twice what was expected. They demanded more of themselves than anyone else, you see. And that's how they became Philharmonic players. So what does that say about you? Right? Maybe you have a hobby, maybe you have a gift, maybe you have something, and maybe you will understand that doing that is boring, it's not fun, and it's very difficult. And it's totally up to you, if you want to rise up, you need to have the consequences. You need to self-impose some pressure on you, because pressure is a privilege. So what do we do when we feel that resistance, that boredom, that difficulty, that pain, right? That pressure? What do we do? Well, you know that it has to do with consciousness, right? We need to make the inner shift inside. For me, this idea of self-demand is very important. Obviously, we need to realize where we've been in consciousness, realize where we may have become comfortable or addicted or limited, right? We also need to be willing to decide for ourselves, I need to make a change. And realize, I'm going to do the things that I've been taught. And like good Unity people, you get your affirmations, you get your vision map, whatever it is. All those things are great. And we also understand that we're in for some rough waters. We're going to be creating some pressure. We're going to be creating some change. Involves resistance, involves pressure. Hello. And that's going to mean some consequences for us. We need to be willing to push through, to come to that edge and push through so that we can be better. Between my wife and I, we've decided to call ourselves when we call each other on, when we hear, some words that might involve some complaining around money, cutting ourselves off, separating ourselves, maybe constricting or conserving ourselves, making ourselves small. Those are three keys for us in scarcity consciousness. We want to be open, flowing, right? That's what we're looking to do. And perhaps more than anything else, as I push on this new frontier, this new edge for me, I'm affirming pressure is a privilege. Pressure is a privilege. It gives me an advantage. It's a special right. It gives me an immunity. Whatever it is, pressure is a privilege. I've adopted that to help me understand what it is that I'm going through. Now, I remember when I was in Costa Rica, I was part of an adult swim team, very competitive. We had a fantastic coach. In fact, he was the coach of the swimmer, the only athlete in Costa Rican history who's gotten a gold medal for the Costa Rican government, the Costa Rican country, right? Name is Claudia Pol. And she would swim with us every morning, right? She was right in the pool there with us. Now, what would happen is after we trained for about an hour and a half in the mornings, she would stay in the pool and continue to train with Frank, who is the name of the trainer. And sometimes I would stay and just watch because it was a fantastic sight to see. Right? Here I was exhausted after an hour and a half of training. After I get out, Frank says to Claudia, all right, let's do some sprints. So she'd get on the starting blocks and he'd blow the whistle and she'd launch out, do the fast 50 meters, as fast as she can. She'd hit the wall and he'd say again. She'd get up, get on the blocks. Now she's breathing heavily, right? She's hardly catching her breath, blows the whistle, boom, she's in the pool again. And again, and again, and again. So one day I asked Frank, I said, Frank, what does it take for somebody to become a world-class swimmer? And he says, well, obviously, if you have some natural talent, that's very important. You have to love the game. You love the sport, rather. You have to love the sport. That really helps. But he said the most important thing is the swimmer needs to realize they have to have a natural disposition that when they're in the pool and they're swimming for their life and their body and their mind is yelling at them, they're telling them, that's enough. You can't breathe. There's no air. Your muscles are tired. You can't take another stroke. It's time to shut down, shut down, shut down. They have a way of interpreting that message. They have a way of seeing that as a wall that they need to push through in order to be better. And they do it willingly and they do it happily. Boom. In other words, those top athletes, they know pressure is a privilege. I'm getting better. I'm growing. I'm busting through. Now, that's true for Claudia Pol. It's true for every one of us. We come to the edge. We have a consciousness that says, that's enough. I've hit the wall. I've been kicked down. It's enough. You push through the boredom. You push through the pain. You push through the pressure. Because you know that's an advantage. It's a special right. It's a privilege. Now, I'm going to close today. By the way, I've taken this on so that I self-impose my own goals, which I'm working on, pressuring myself on these 3 ministries that I've talked to you about. So far, so good. It's been about less than a month that I really started working on that. But again, reminding myself, pressure is a privilege. I'd like to close today with this poem from a poem that you all know. You've heard this before. This is William Ernest Henley. The poem is Invictus. Now, you know the poem, written in the 19th century, English guy. What you may not know is that he, around 18, he was suffering from some kind of physical disorder. And it turns out that they needed to amputate one of his legs below the knee. And as he was facing that amputation and he was recovering from that, he started writing poetry. And this particular poem was written while he was in the hospital recovering from that amputation. Okay? So this is a man who knows that he's facing some real challenge ahead, right? Invictus. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced or cried out loud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how strait the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. I can only imagine that Jesus, as he went through Palm Sunday and on to Good Friday, the crucifixion and the resurrection, lived this. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. So Juan Enrique Toro saluting all of the captains of their souls out there, understanding that pressure is a privilege. Happy Palm Sunday. God bless each and every one of you. Unity Fredericksburg, I love you.